Alright, happy Sunday everyone. Well, welcome to this week's vlog. This one's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about this. I am just about to knock on the door of my very good friend Jamie Reed, who also is a fellow Type 1. Jamie and I, we probably banter daily just about all things Type 1, UFC, you name it, just a top guy. So I'm really interested to sit down and have a good conversation with him. Anyway, let's go.
G'day.
Hey man.
How are you?
Good mate, you?
Good to see you.
Your doorbell worked?
Yeah.
How you going?
Good mate. Come in.
Annie? Hey Annie. Alright, so I'm here with my good friend here, Jamie, having some of his awesome French press coffee. And we're just going to have a bit of a chat today about, obviously both of us here live with Type 1 and we'll probably speak about it daily, almost daily.
Yeah, I think social media, messenger, we've able to get in contact and
we
suss things out.
all sorts of things, fitness and
bounce things off each other.
yeah, food. What salad did you have for lunch?
Share frustrations.
Share frustrations.
Plenty of those being a Type 1.
Yeah, that's part of the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
But look, I've wanted to sit down and have a chat with you for ages because you're just a wealth of knowledge on the topic, and you know, you've done a lot of your own research, and you know, it's really a lot of practices you put into place that have really, I guess, benefited your quality of life because, as we know, living with Type 1, it can really negatively impact your quality of life as well. So tell us a little bit about your, I guess, let's start at the beginning, your diagnosis. How did you find out initially that you had Type 1 diabetes?
Yeah, I think I had the classic symptoms, and I wish I'd known what they were. You know, the dryness, drinking a litre of water and feeling thirsty. You know, just come on so quickly.
Yeah.
Blurred vision, tired. I remember getting passed by a guy who was 70 years old with a suitcase. I was walking along to the airport, and I was just couldn't believe how tired I was. But I think you get used to that. And this guy walked past me, and I tried to keep up. I was thinking, and what's going on? And within 24 hours, I was diagnosed. So I had blurry vision, urination was just constant, dry mouth, and tired. Yeah, it was horrible. And I was on a ship at the time, so I ended up on the ship with this guy who was 70. He should have been retired. He was a chef, and I was basically a galley hand. And went to the nurse, said there's something wrong, and she said, I'll test for X, Y, Z, including diabetes, but you won't have diabetes. You know, I looked pretty much like I did now, probably about 5 kilograms lighter because I was losing a lot of weight, still eating like a horse. I woke up in the morning, she tested my blood sugars and they were 15 point something, fasted, and then tested me after a meal and they were 15 point something, and she said, you've got diabetes. Yeah. You've got to get off the ship. Yeah. Annie having a drink in the back.
Yeah.
Hopefully she hasn't got diabetes. Hopefully it's just the 40-degree weather, eh? So luckily with the setup on the ship, because I was diagnosed at sea, there was a lot of support. Yeah. And so I went home and Googled diabetes. Having said that, I went and saw my doctor and he said, you've got type 2. That was a real shame because I spent 10 months without insulin, losing weight and eating like a horse. Yeah, but I had enough pancreatic function at the time because of when I was diagnosed, and I will step back a bit. When I was diagnosed, I thought that protein and high carb were where it was at. So I'd have a plate of rice with a bit of meat and veg on it as a staple, whether I was on the ship or off the ship, and oatmeal and that sort of stuff with the eggs. And whatever protein source, and so my pancreas couldn't with the 15 millimole, you know, that was way out of range. But as soon as I dropped that out, step back, I've got to step forward. So I got home, Googled blood sugars, Googled diabetes, and went, well, how do I get normal blood sugars? That's what, you know, I should be able to get normal blood sugars. Yeah. And found Dr. Bernstein. Yeah. Yeah, and just ordered the book on the book depository there within a week. And I just sat there and read it read everything that was applicable to me.
It's almost hard to put that book down. It is like the, you know, I remember my own sort of journey coming across that book and just reading it and thinking, man, how come everything I've been told until this point looks vastly different to what I'm reading? But not only that, how can what I'm reading right now be ineffective or wrong, if you like? I mean, I guess there's no right or wrong, but you know, when you picked up that book and you started reading it and you think, hang on a second here, you know, carbohydrates leading to higher doses of insulin, leading to the sort of variability in insulin.
Whether or not your pancreas is producing that insulin as a non-diabetic, or whether you've got to take more insulin as a diabetic, for sure.
And I mean, the guy himself is testament to his approach, I guess. You know, he's 84 now. Yeah. And still lifting weights.
Still working.
Still, you know, and he had those complications too early in his diagnosis. So he
diagnosed at 12, I think.
Yeah, so he had the sort of the signs of kidney disease, neuropathies, and visual disturbance, all sorts of things. So so you've read the book, and I guess that was probably the start of your low carb journey.
So literally I went, okay, well, he's doing... So my thought process has always been, whether it be with photography, martial arts, what else have I done? A few different things, that if they can do it, I can do it. If someone else can do it, then I can do it.
Yeah.
So, not talking about extreme things, like cycling across Australia.
Who does that? Seriously.
Boy. Anyway, and so I'm thinking, well, if this guy can run normal blood sugars, he's onto something, and if he can do it, I can do it. Yeah. So I've just got to learn how my body reacts. And I thought I was type 2, bearing in mind.
Yeah.
So all I did was implement the low carb. So I just ditched the rice and replaced it with a little bit of broccolini or asparagus or avocado, and just had a bit of fish or meat.
Yeah.
Normal blood sugars. My pancreas was still operating well enough to control that, to be able to deal with that. But I was in that honeymoon phase, and I didn't know that. I thought I was type 2. So 10 months later, if I'm you're going to go outside, Annie? You want to go outside? If I'm exercising and eating low carb, I'm getting a rise now after dinner, after lunch. But my biggest rise is in the morning because I've got no basil on board. Like, it was bizarre. Right. So as soon as I was moving around, exercising, my body seemed to be able to... Any insulin was more efficient. Yeah. But in the mornings, I'd wake up at 8 millimole, being low carb. And I went to the doctor numerous times and said, I need insulin. And then I finally got to see an endo. And I just walked in the door and he went, oh, you think you're type 2, you're type 1. I said, no, you know, he goes, no, I'll run the test for you, but you're type 1. And so I had to reread the book and then the insulin. But it was a blessing in that I knew I could run normal blood sugars. Yeah. Now I just had to start adding the insulin in. Yeah. And as soon as I did that, the energy levels changed up, better weight stopped dropping off me. I got down to 67 kilograms. Yeah, wow. That's almost it's 10 kilograms lighter than what I am now. Yeah. And I'm not, carrying any weight. Yeah. So that was incredible. So, just implemented a program of using the Nova Rapid. Yeah. I still didn't have the Levemir. They didn't give me that. And it's a little bit later. And then I got the Levemir, and then I found from you at that meeting we first had with Beck and Niall and Charles and those guys, Matt Contel, that you use an R and that covers your protein, and that was like
Humulin R. That was a
other than low carb and insulin, that was the game changer.
And that's what I had used. I mean, we've probably all had an experience of using various different insulins. I remember when I first was diagnosed, we were on the mixed start insulin, so it was the combined cloud.
Yeah, I've only been diagnosed 5 years. Yeah,
well,
that's 5 years in February.
This is going back probably the full 21 years for me, but that was terrible stuff. And I remember Protophane, and there was the Act Rapids, and all different types of insulin through they've obviously evolved and they've improved them. They've become faster acting. There's been better, slower acting insulins out there, but
different choices of both.
Yeah, it was such a sort of groundbreaking thing for me to learn from all the legends in our local community that were hitting the Humulin. And I think again Beck was obviously the driver of
regular,
that. But, I've thought, how can a slower acting insulin, be ultimately a step forward?
And it's still a fast acting insulin. That's what it's classed as.
It does the job, but it matches that protein breakdown and the gluconeogenesis sort of situation with that perfectly. So I think that was definitely a way forward, and for you it's obviously really
you're going
really
inside,
so.
Annie, drop it. Good girl. That's right. Come on. No. And it still takes a little bit of experimenting. Everyone's different. I think that's one of the really big things that you learn on the type 1. One size doesn't fit all. Although, having said that, I couldn't imagine continuing my diabetes journey, which is all likely lifelong. I personally don't think they'll find a cure. So that's why I'm committed to this, because if they do, my body will be in the best shape going forward.
Yeah.
But if they don't, and I'm able to run normal blood sugars like 95% of the time.
Yeah.
Like
And
it's crazy.
That's the thing. I must admit, from my own sort of position as well. I mean, I've never really focused too much on the cure, and I guess I've
winning lottery.
Subconsciously, I've always thought, well, I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime. I'd love to see it happen, like probably every one of us would, but I didn't want to focus on it, because then I felt I'm blinded to making the most out of my situation now, in the moment, and that sounds exactly like what you're doing, how you look at it.
Yeah, I suppose I was focused on the now, and I knew that I could do something. Once I read that book, Dr. Bernstein's Diabetes Solution, I just went, if he can do it, I can do it. What do I need to learn? And then I needed to change things, and I've had to change things since. I don't follow things to a T, but I've got a bit of a routine, and I think that period without insulin taught me a lot. Yeah. And then the period where I started using the Novo Rapid taught me, and as soon as I started taking insulin, I went, oh, I'm going to gain weight. Like, not necessarily get fat, but I need insulin in my body to convert these calories, basically, to get the glucose into the system. Yeah. I didn't know about ketones in the secondary sort of system, or the primary system, if you want to call it, of using your own fat for body, for energy. But I'm going to do weights again. I haven't done weights since I was 20 something. Yeah. And so I went from 67 kilos up to 89 kilos. Oh, wow. Yeah. And people weren't recognising me. Yeah. Well, they were, but I couldn't wear the same shorts or the same t-shirts and stuff. And it was my smallest body parts were then getting to be my best body parts, and people were just, and I was just amazed. And then I realised, hang on, insulin, I had a reasonable control. I think I was 5 point something with my HbA1c, and I had pretty good control, but I was having a lot of standard deviation, like a lot of lows and a lot of highs, and not high highs, but just correcting a lot and overcorrecting a lot. And then that process of having a normal diet, eating high carb, moderate protein and lower fats, taught me a lot about how to use Novo Rapid. And how to cover those, and what I can get away with and stuff. And then I decided, no, that's a young person's game who's probably not a type 1 diabetic, really. I mean, I train now, but I just eat low carb, and I'm not interested in being big and all that. So but I learned things there, and then I went low carb, and my body weight stabilised, and my energy went through the roof. And then I learned about
It's almost an effortless kind of, I find from a weight management perspective, low carb it's almost effortless to manage your weight. And I find it is more of a sort of metabolic reset, and your body finds it sort of equilibrium. It's you know, where we're supposed to be. It's like resetting the thermostat, really. But yeah, I mean, obviously you've experienced the different. It's a journey, isn't it? I mean, when I was diagnosed, it was all over the place. You know, I then sort of got into the fitness realm, and fitness helped me manage it better. So then I was more focused on my diet again, and I felt like I was following doctor's orders to the T.
Yeah.
You know, and I kept going back to the endocrinologist, and the HbA1c was, you know, still 8. Got into cycling and it dropped a bit. But, you know, I was still living that roller coaster. But to evolve from that, then the biggest evolution for me was then moving into the low carb space, and everything just seemed to settle down.
Yep.
Weight, fluctuation, energy levels, even my immune response. Everything was more stable, and it wasn't that game of, you know, food, then insulin, then hypo, then treating the hypo, then trying to chase down the high, and then trying to balance it out. And it, you know, no matter how much I kind of messed around with the carbohydrate content, it was never quite right. That whole cereal, bread, dry cracker snacks, high fruit intake, it wasn't there. So, and that's obviously what Dr. Bernstein talks about in his book. So I guess run us through then, what's a standard day for you? So you've obviously you've taken a lot from the book, a lot from your own personal experience. How does your day structured? What meals do you eat, and exercise? I guess because you've spoken about that.
Yeah. So work full time. So obviously, like everyone else, you've got to work around that. Quite often work the weekends, but generally speaking, it's Monday to Friday. So either I have 3 different starts: an early start. Like tomorrow I'll start at 5. I won't eat probably until morning tea. So the low carb has given me that ability to not be hungry. Was always hungry. Before diabetes, I was always hungry, always eating. When I was high carb and injecting insulin, I was always looking for that next meal and grumpy if I didn't have it. And now, if I want to, I don't do it very often, maybe once every few months, I'll go 24 hours without having a meal.
Yeah, wow.
You know? And I don't even get that grumble at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the tummy anymore.
And that's that fat adaptation.
Yeah.
Low insulin, because insulin obviously, insulin prevents you, or too much insulin. I should always probably highlight that excess insulin or whatever, it's having that balance, but too much insulin will really knock your body out of ketosis and prevent or impede that fat burning process. So fasting would be more difficult in a high insulin or insulinemic environment. Yeah,
for sure. And then on top of that, as you know, you've got your basal that we run in the background, and I split mine 3 ways with the Levemir. I know now you use the pump really well, but if you've got that dialed up because you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, that you're masking your actual true basal rate, and because that can be way higher than what it should be, and sitting in the background. And when you drop those carbs out for a fast, you'll have those lows that you just can't seem to pick yourself up from. And
that's the thing. The basal is really it's a pretty important thing to get right off the bat, because if your basal's wrong, it's going to roll on into, like you say, you're going to drop low in between meals. You're going to probably have an incorrect bolus, and speaking from a pumper, you're going to have a pretty incorrect or invalid insulin to carb ratio. It's all going to be knocked out of kilter. So that basal testing, and Dr. B talks about that.
Yeah, everyone's individual, so you've got to do that sort of testing yourself, and that's how I do it over a fast. So I don't have any other things come in. People say to me, the walk I did, the half an hour walk I did, made me go low, or the exercise I did made me go low, or but it's the insulin. It's the insulin what drives you low. The exercise increases the sensitivity of the insulin in your body. So if your basal rate's too high, every time you go for that march, stroll, whatever it might be, that hike, you're almost guaranteed you will go low. So,
and that's through my most recent journey. I've learned too that obviously the subcutaneous insulin is drawn into the body through the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system is not like the blood flow. It's not driven by a pump. It's not, your heart does not drive the lymphatic system. Movement does. They're like little flapper valves that open and close as you move.
Yeah.
So the more you move, the faster you speed up the insulin process, the faster it's required to absorb the energy. Just makes sense. But yeah, if you've got too much basal on board, then it's...
And you start to move, it gets activated.
And let's not even talk about bolus. I mean, if you had a high bolus dose, I remember those days.
So generally speaking, I'll have 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And I practice a little bit of intermittent fasting in that I don't necessarily have breakfast when I get up.
Yeah.
Usually get up around 5 or 6 and walk the dog.
Yeah.
So I might have it at 8, 9 or 10.
Yeah.
And then have lunch, depending on when I have breakfast, 12, 1 or 2. And then I try and have an early dinner, 5 or 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
If I'm done and dusted, I mean, if I go out and I happen to eat at 7, 8, 9 o'clock, then, but generally speaking, if I'm eating at 5:30, 6, 6:30, I can sort everything out if there is any problems, lows or highs, before I go to bed.
If I had in a high carb environment tried to replicate the type of control that I've seen in low carb, it would be so much more labour intensive, so much more emotionally draining. And look, you know, it's probably clear to point out that everyone is different.
Yeah.
You know, I tend to, like, I know I've personally a little bit stepped back from looking at other people's numbers generally, so I'm not comparing, but in an individual setting, it's good to be able to look at what you know now is good management for you, is improving your quality of life versus what it could be on the standard advice that we're talking about from before, that high carb environment with high insulin. It's just, they're not comparable.
No. And the standard deviation, if I showed you my meter, I have 2 meters. One I carry around with me.
Yeah.
And one I leave by the bed table because I've woken up a couple of times, as you do, type 1, and gone, I'm low, and you know you're low. You know, what's going on, and you reach for the glucose. Well, I have that meter there because I've not had it there in the past. It's been, this one out here, so I've got 2 meters and another spare that I keep in case one of those stops working. And I've tested them against each other. They read very closely, even though they're different brands, but they take the same strips. So the standard deviation, my night time, is like probably 0.4 of a millimole, and last 3 months that I can look through on the meter, I've had probably 1 treatable low and maybe 1 reading of a 6 millimole. And
mentally and emotionally, because I mean physically that's incredible. It's incredible to know that you can go to bed and relatively just not worry, but I really tend to, I've got this real sort of focus now on that mentally and emotionally, because it's something I've struggled with over the years of having type 1.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel going to bed with type 1, which is in each and every one of us, it's got to have been that fear is something that I think we've all lived with at some point, but how does it make you feel from a mental or emotional perspective, going to bed and knowing most nights it's not really going to move?
Yeah, it's incredible. Like the confidence it gives you. That's the least of my worries when I go to sleep at night. Like I do check, I check my blood, make sure, but I'm not taking a correction as I go to sleep. I'm not taking glucose as I go to sleep. It's all sorted by that early evening meal, and I know my basal. I know it really well. So it's the confidence, just confidence that I have right now. It's incredible. Like if I get it's a shock to me if I get a reading that's. I could bring the meter out and show you, but if it's anything other than high 3s, mid 4s, I'm like, oh, okay.
More of a predictable outcome.
Oh, it's just, it is predictable. It's crazy.
And again, I'm just saying that it's such a different environment, type 1, for every individual.
Yeah.
And many of us have different. I know myself. I mean, I have majority of the time good control over my type 1. I know that I can jump on my bike for a few hours at a time. Sometimes, I mean, I've tested it up to 6-8 hours. Yeah. But I'm confident. I know that I'm not going to get on the bike unless I do something, silly or out of the ordinary with my type 1 or change something. I know that it's not just going to swing out of the ballpark and I'm going to be in a dangerous situation. And it's that confidence. It's going to bed and knowing. I mean, because I've had a fit. I've had a seizure before, very early in my diagnosis, and it's a day in my life that I will never forget, and never want to put my family through that again.
But getting to that is a journey, and it takes dedication. It takes experiment. If you're not willing to experiment, and you don't hold on to experiment long enough. Or you miss something critical in that experiment, you can go back to your old way. You can revert to something that gets you in the ballpark. But I've just tweaked things, and you can hack your body. You can.
Certainly can.
And you can do that learning through a fast or low carb. Through changing your insulins, changing your timing. Like I take Levemir 3 times a day. Yeah. My midday dose is like 1 to 1.5 units. It's just a trickle in the background. My main one at night time used to be, and like 6 or 7 units. And I'm not. I wish I could put my finger on why, but I'm down to 2.5 units for that nighttime one, which is a huge drop, and that's not exercise dependent. I haven't ridden since I last rode with you, Neil.
Yeah.
Since we rode down.
So it's just very much having that sort of basal to cover the background, and it's using the bolus to really determine the circumstances of the day and manage that side of it. But the basal is the basal. It does its thing.
And it does change. Like I still work out, but the aerobic side, an hour ride like we had the other day, I knew I took a unit less again for that, and that worked out well. So I guess learning from those mistakes.
And it's combining the knowledge with personal experience. That's been the tweak for me. Is before I was using, I guess, I was having my own experience, but it was based on not having enough knowledge. So my negative experience, if I call it negative with type 1, all those years of not having the management or control that I would have liked, it came from a place of not being knowledgeable myself, trying to just live through my own experiences and try and change things, but having the knowledge there yourself is the key. Having a great medical team is obviously important, and everyone's different.
It doesn't need to be a medical team, though.
No,
it needs to be.
And that's where I came to. I was seeing, an endocrinologist, and they do an incredible job at what they do. I was seeing a particular endocrinologist for a long period of my time with type 1, but wasn't particularly receptive to change. Wasn't particularly receptive to me taking the reins a lot more, and I hold a lot of that as my own responsibility. Once I started researching and talking in our community, our type 1 community, and the great gifts of knowledge I've got from some incredible people in our community, and using that, and I started to realise, hang on, this works because of that. I'm going high in exercise because of that reason. Coffee spikes me because of that. You start, and it's a journey. It's never a sort of, you've got type 1, do this and it will work. And it's so different with everyone because, even recently, my own sort of gut health, I didn't know I was celiac until it got quite bad. everything. You know, you get a common cold and it knocks your level of resistance up. There's so many factors, but they're very individual. So the knowledge and the experience works.
Yeah. So typically I'll have an omelette for breakfast.
Yeah.
But if we go back to food.
Yeah.
And with that, I could have any number of condiments.
Yeah.
You know, I could just have 3 or 4 eggs.
Yeah.
With a bit of salt and pepper. I could have some garlic. I could chuck in some asparagus. I could have mushrooms, chilies, olives. You know,
Yeah.
I just mix it up. But typically speaking, I'll have the eggs. And I used to only have R with that, but now because I'm eating 3 times a day, I've gone from 5 or 6 meals a day to 3, then to 2 to do the full intermittent fasting.
Yeah.
And I wasn't hungry, but I just decided I didn't want to be that lean.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to have a breakfast and work that back in. So I'll take a Novo Rapid for that, and that covers that really well. And then that allows me to have a lunch. If I had R and then R and then R, because it lasts a little bit longer in the system, it tends to overlap a bit. And I have to time the R a little bit better than Novo. So Novo I can just have it and eat, whereas the R I've got to, for myself, I've got to take it half an hour before I eat. So it allows me a preparation time, but if I don't factor that in and I'm running late for work, all of a sudden I can't have the R. So
then you
have my breakfast,
Yeah.
and then as I said before, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, whatever it might be, sometimes 6 o'clock, 6 a.m. Then lunch, could be anything. Could be a mince, like a bolognese,
Yeah.
with veg through it, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, so I tend to have my bigger, stronger red meats in the middle of the day.
Yeah, so breakfast, what about lunch?
Yep, lunch. So for the 3 meals, I feel satisfied.
Yeah.
I'm not hungry in between the meals. I don't snack.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to snack. I'd like to have the choice too, but I've got to take insulin.
Yeah.
So I just make sure that breakfast, lunch, and dinner is going to see me through.
So would snacking almost be deliberate? You don't feel hungry to snack. It's not a necessity. It's
no, it's just it's just, you know, like if I see someone offers me something, I'd like to be able to say and just have
a nice piece of dark chocolate or
and I do. I'll have a piece of 90% because I know that a couple of pieces that won't cause any issues. So
by the way, King, homemade chocolate King.
Oh yeah, I haven't done it for a while though.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
When it's there, it's addictive. When it's not there, you don't miss it. It's a bit like coffee, you know. Once you're off the coffee cycle, it's okay. But alcohol, chocolate, you know, those 3 big ones.
What's the term I hear flying around? They call it hyper palatable foods.
Okay.
They reckon baked potato with butter is one of the most common hyper palatable foods.
Yeah.
That's why they're so addictive.
Yeah.
But you know, that's the old carb fat combination, which is probably not that ideal.
Probably, you're being very generous.
All right, so lunch.
Yeah, just any sort of meat, like the chicken, beef, pork chops, lamb chops. Just a meat with broccolini, asparagus. I like my sauerkraut.
Yeah.
But, you know, something with a few. So
it's a real
lunch.
variety of greens. You probably have a fairly. I've seen your salad bar.
The big salads.
The big salad bowls and.
I'm never a salad person.
Yeah.
No, but now, a bit of a dressing on it, but I don't have to do that even. Apple cider vinegar with a little bit of olive oil, or salt and pepper. So and dinner, generally try and have something that's fairly easy to digest. So for me, fish, but not every night.
Something that's not too complex moving into the night time and going to bed with something that's going to be too slow.
To be honest, it could be a 250 gram T-bone or sirloin or porterhouse, medium rare, with a bit of garlic, salt and pepper and some veg with it, maybe some artichoke hearts and some, some greens. But I prefer not to. But for the lunch and dinner, I'll take R with that.
Yeah.
Generally the same amount of R.
Yeah.
And I fill my plate up, get my fat from the meats. There's not too much added fat.
Yeah. And I find that too. That's probably one thing that I've really progressed from now is, you know, there's a lot of sort of, it's hard to put it forward in the right way, but you know, the sort of popular keto
cookie cutter.
Yeah, what you'll see on the TV and on social media and stuff like that is this real high fat drive, as much fat as you like, fat to satiety, fat beyond that. That really, from a perspective of someone with type 1, complicates it a little bit. It has, in my experience, too much fat will cause resistance. And if you add in other sort of macros on top of that, a lot of protein or carbohydrate, if you like, it's going to mess it around.
Yeah.
If
you're not hungry and your energy levels are good, I mean, that's got to be the two main things that you hit.
Yeah.
So, and then exercise comes in on that.
Yeah, well, exercise is the, there's obviously it's a huge part of managing type 1, and for everyone, again, it's very different how we all respond, what time of day we exercise, what type of exercise. So how does what's your routine? What do you enjoy about it?
It brings a consistency. So you've still got to experiment with it. I do 10 to 15,000 steps a day at work, and then I walk the dog before and after work. And that could be from half an hour to an hour, you know, if it's on the weekend or before or after work.
And walking, I see it's everywhere now.
Even
on social media, in the type 1 space, walking is pretty well, I'd say, number one, I'd say, for what people are doing.
Yep.
And a lot of it is post-meal walking, first thing in the morning. I find that, you know, I can start off high, and without any insulin on board, if I walk briskly, I can gradually bring it down into normal range. I would never dream of having a bolus on board, but walking, very beneficial, low inflammation.
Yep, low impact.
Having a dog helps.
Having a dog helps big time, when she's looking at you saying, you know, it's that time of day again. So you've got to do it whether or not you want to. So that's a good thing. And at work, you're in the same thing. You know, like being seated is not as we know, it's not a good thing. And then you've got the more intense exercise. So my routine.
You've got a weight set up out there.
Yeah. I got the squat rack.
Yeah.
And I put the bench in there, so it's all I can do it by myself and have the safety racks in, and I'm okay. If something happens, I get an injury or I've got a weight that's too heavy. So typically
heavy, or do you moderate weight, high rep? What's your sort of variant?
I think with the weights, I don't power lift. I'm not interested in seeing how strong I am for 1 or 2 reps. So it's always moderate to higher reps. But if you if you got a failure on a 20 rep squat,
that's going to hurt.
Close to double your body weight. I'm not doing that at the moment, but I have done it before. 20 reps is no joke.
No, definitely not.
It taxes your whole body. But typically I'll wake up, walk the dog for half an hour, like maybe a cup of tea, walk the dog for half an hour, come home, check my bloods. But generally speaking, I will take an IM, so intramuscular. 8mm needle with a Nova Rapid, and I'll take a unit.
Which is in the Dr. B book. He pretty well is good at explaining how and where to take that's most effective. So the IM is why. Like you'll take that before weights?
No, so that's to cover the dawn phenomenon, that rise that you get. So when I wake up, I test, and then I'll take my first morning Levemir dose, but that takes 3.5 hours in my body, and I imagine most people's bodies 3 or 4 hours to kick in. So if I wake up at 4 or 5 or 6, it's not going to come in until 7, 8, 9. So when I wake up and get moving proper, to walk the dog, I'll test again, and if it's risen at all, I'll take a 1 unit IM, and I usually have my bum bag, and I'll have my glucose in there, and I'll just disappear for half an hour to an hour, walk the dog. I can't remember the last time I've had to take glucose on that walk.
Okay.
So I come back, test again, and generally speaking, I'm high threes, mid fours, ready to go. That's where I want to be, and that's it's just the way it is. So it's a routine.
Yeah.
So I've got that sussed, and then I'll go and warm up. And warm up will be push-ups, body weight, squats, bench press, but whatever activity it's going to be, bent over rows, squats. The warm up, I don't take anything.
Yeah.
Before my first work set, I'll take a unit and a half, same IM, usually in the opposite shoulder, ready for the workout.
And that's to cover that adrenal response from weightlifting.
If I don't take that, I just go from the 4s up into the 8s.
Yeah.
And
and
now
isn't it amazing though? The liver can hold it's not just held in the liver, but the majority of the glycogen that's released is from the liver.
Yeah.
Can hold something like 400 grams or something, I think, in the average person of glycogen. And glycogen is the purest, most efficient form of glucose.
Okay, so straight into the
system. So for anyone else, as a metabolically healthy person, that would be fine. You're charged full of that energy.
I'd love to test someone who's normal, like just a non-diabetic, after a heavy set of deadlifts or squats, and they're heaving, the chest is heaving, and their legs are burning or whatever, and then you test them. I wonder, like if they do get a bit of a spike that their body has to.
It'd be interesting to see. I'm sure they would.
Because the cortisol is coming in big time.
You've got different hormones at play. So everyone's cortisol level of release is different.
Yep.
Everyone's glycogen storage is different. And obviously with us, we're injecting insulin, but then you've got glucagon at play as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many different hormones that, man, it's full on. So you always take the unit and a half to curb that. You've done your workout. How long does that last?
Shortest one would be 20 minutes. So that would just be a couple of work sets.
Yeah.
So I'll do bodyweight chin-ups for say 3 to 5 sets.
Yeah.
And some squats, and then if I'm out, have to get out the door and done and dusted, I haven't left myself enough time. Otherwise, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and that's basically full body.
That's a pretty well-rounded resistance workout. That'd be what anyone would probably be recommending. You're not going to get any real benefit beyond that.
I don't want to commit to an hour or an hour and a half in the gym.
And weights, I've never been a believer in that. When I was going to the gym a lot, it was never, doing an hour and a half of weights, I just don't find as beneficial. But from a type 1 management perspective, 40-45 minutes, you're done. Now, what happens after? I know in my experience, weights are always a catalyst for a blood sugar crash if I don't get it right.
Yeah. I eat, so I have a shower, sort myself out for my breakfast, and then take my Novo. I used to take the R, but like I said, the Novo ranch is really well. I can do it straight away. So I could wait half an hour to an hour. I check my blood sugars. And it's just been magic.
How much of an impact does that weight workout or the resistance workouts have on your normal? So Jamie doesn't do weights on one day. Jamie does weights on another day. What is your post? So, for me, anywhere from 8 to 24 hours after a decent resistance training workout, I'm highly sensitive. Those are the times when I probably had some real epic hypos when I haven't had it right.
When you get it wrong.
And more so from using a pump now. I'm obviously a pump user now, where you're on the Levemir and the Nova Rapid or Humulin combination. Do you need to reduce your basal? How much bolus do you need to reduce in the meals after, or if at all? What happens?
It's a good question. I'm training 3 days a week, and I'm being consistent about it. And I think the overlap, like you're saying about the 24 hours or whatever, I think that pretty much covers me to the next workout. So I don't notice on a Saturday or on Sunday that I'm more sensitive or less sensitive. Generally speaking, it's probably more the aerobic. If I do an hour of riding, like when I rode with you that day, then I'll think about it that I'll definitely need to take less basal.
So interesting how it's so different. For me, I guess it's what you're used to, but if I do weights, I've really got to dial it back.
And then you're saying So you're like, I'm on a consistent routine now.
So you're doing that route, but I was at one stage. I was probably lifting weights every day at one point, but then I dropped back to every second day, and I found that I was just having to really dial it back, at least on the pump,
and the
at least a 30 to 40% basal reduction.
Yep.
And the same with a bolus. So I'd have to really consciously, and if I got it wrong, if I accidentally just took the bolus that I was recommended on my calculations, bang, I'd be having a serious hypo with that meal or post meal. But with a bike, I'm not. I'll reduce the basal, like I'll set the pump to say in the morning, not as low as at night, but I'll reduce my basal during the ride. Ride's done, get off. Unless it's a real hard-hitting 4-hour ride, if it's just a standard endurance ride, it doesn't really muck around with anything much, not post-exercise.
And that's an experience coming into play.
It is.
Do you know what I mean? Like that.
You know your routine, I know mine. I think we're all in that sort of realm where we really understand our body. And it doesn't just stop and start from you picking up the Dr. B book and reading it and following his advice. It's not textbook. Like, this thing is not black and white. There's so many variables, and that's what I see so much. Type 1 is not eat this, take that insulin, do this, and you'll get that result.
No.
For every single person, it's so different. I see people that are, I see people out there eating 350 grams of carbs a day, and for whatever reason that's working for them. I don't know the fine details, but then there's someone on 30 grams a day.
That was me.
With a high fat.
I was doing that. I was at one stage was having, and I worked up to it. As I got stronger, I was having more and more. So I was making a protein shake, which would have one banana, a couple of scoops of protein powder, blueberries, 600 to 800 ml of whole milk that I got from a dairy.
Yeah.
I was drinking a litre of milk a day, which had the cream on top. And I'd have nuts and seeds in there and blend it up. And I was taking 10 units IM Nova Rapid in the shoulder.
Man.
Glug. And 70, 80, 90% of the time falling in that normal blood sugar. But when I got it wrong, bearing in mind one unit will drop me about 4 millimole. So I can go from 4 to 0 or 8 to 4 on 1 unit. So if I was 1 unit out on that 10, now I'm not taking any IMs other than a correction one or my DP. I'm not having
DP as well, dawn phenomenon.
I'm not having those shakes. So I'm just having 3 units subcutaneous, something like that. So
and it's just understanding your body. I mean, I think that's also an advantage. It's an advantage as someone with type 1, you can kind of see what you wouldn't see in everyone's everyday life. I was always, at one stage, I was the go to the gym and hit the protein shake hard guy. And it's not until I've taken away all the other variables in my blood glucose management that I understand now that protein powder reacts in very similar ways to processed carbohydrate. I found it hits me quite quickly.
Very hard to match it in. Nova Rapid in the shoulder, like ice cream, protein shakes, alcohol, a pint of Guinness, Nova Rapid in the shoulder will get you in the ballpark to matching that spike. But because you're trying to match 2 peaks,
and they drop off quickly.
So exactly.
It's hard to match them.
So you can match them from time to time. And you can get reasonably good at matching them from time to time, but that's where that R comes in.
It's not as consistent as matching those the 2 slow peaks are very easy to kind of cover each other. Those 2 sharp peaks, it's like trying to get two very small objects in the same place at the right time.
Trying to land a helicopter or put 2 magnets together. It's just
trying to land a plane on a wind. I don't know, probably cliched out, but
but the one thing I didn't know that I wish I'd known is that there are 2 fuel sources in the body. I just thought it was carbohydrates. Protein was essential for amino acids. Greens were just something you had because your mum served them up.
Vitamins and minerals.
You're a kid, you don't want to eat your greens. So maybe they know something we don't.
No.
Anyway, the carbohydrates are addictive. and glycogen, you know, everyone knows about that sort of stuff now these days, blood glucose. But there's another energy system in the body, and it's fat.
Yeah.
And you've got, instead of 2,000 calories, you've got 20, 30, 40,000 calories. You've got a couple of days worth easy.
Absolutely.
Even if you're skinny as a beanpole.
Yeah.
So that's not accessible unless
in a hyperinsulinemic environment.
And a high carb diet, it's not accessible.
Yeah.
Your body shuts down, you get foggy headed, you get irritable, you get hungry.
We call it, as a cyclist, the bonk.
The bonk, marathon runners hit it. Anyone that's doing extended, you know, up over around 2 to 3 hours, depending on the activity level and the intensity, is going to hit that wall. Yeah,
when you hit that wall, it is like, I remember many rides being out and I'd run out of bananas.
Yeah, and no more gels.
It's like you're trying to push the pedal and you're just barely able to turn the pedals. And that's not hypo. You know,
no.
Add a hypo on top of that, it's a world of hurt, but you know, you're just grinding away. And you know, you can have another banana instantaneously, and it's hard to come back from that. It probably takes a bit.
No, you need to get it in before it happens. Yeah. Whereas when the fats are being metabolized and those ketones are there,
you just don't see it. No. You don't feel it. You can roll along.
Energy's just there.
Consistent.
But it takes a while to get into that, to be fat adapted.
Yeah.
And it needs a well formulated whole foods diet to get there.
I totally agree.
If you don't put the work in, then you're stuck on the roller coaster.
Yes.
And that's a shame. But there is a choice. So, and that choice is one I've taken on board and you've taken on board, and 90 to 99% of the time, it's not 100%, we choose to go down that route of saying no. I know what that will cause. Yeah. You know, occasionally we don't, but it's occasionally. So when you're fat adapted and you've got that metabolic, what would you call it?
It's adaptation. It's basically, you've got to build the network throughout your body. You've got to develop your body into preferring that fat for fuel. Yep. It doesn't happen in 3 weeks. No. I don't even think it happens in 6. It took me at least 3 months to iron out the kinks. Yep. You know, I remember I got a flu several times in that adaptation phase, but I've gone from this lifelong high carb cereal eating diet to suddenly saying, hang on a sec, where's all of that gone? My body didn't know what to do with. I was never a fat person, and that's the other key.
And we've just fallen for the advertising.
Yes. So, you get to that stage that you've read all this information and you think, well, okay, so you've just got to have the patience. You've got to have the patience. You've got to understand that it's a process, that you'll get there, and believe in what you're reading is an effective way to do that. But once I became fat adapted, I really saw the power in that. And again, I say that it's different for everyone. There's different levels. There's different factors. There's all sorts of different things at play. It's not a case of, again, eat this, take that, go out and do that, and it will work. You've got to find what works for you, what from your experience benefits you, and what makes you feel good. Because at the end of the day, that's probably the most important driver for me now. Everything I tend to do is what makes me feel good. If my blood glucose is in check along with that, that's obviously very, very important. Yep. You don't feel good when you're 10 millimole. You don't even feel good when you're 8. But it's just making sure that it's looking at the whole picture. But I find that the more that we pull away from whole foods and start adding in all of this sort of refined and yes, that includes anything that it can be low carb and be processed, it can be high carb and be processed. I find that the more we pull away from eating what we're actually naturally intended to eat, the more things go a little bit offline. Yep. And with type 1, they can go offline a lot more than normal. Yeah,
we're always monitoring that. It's a constant process. So.
But man, we could banter on all day.
Yeah, we could.
I could literally talk about this stuff with you all day, and the camera's probably going to cut out. But
probably go.
yeah, but awesome chat.
Yeah, so there is a choice when it comes down to it. There's always choices to be made, and it's a continual learning curve.
Cause and effect.
Yeah.
in most cases. Sometimes we don't know.
Oh, sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know why.
Go, what the heck?
What happened there? But like my diabetes educator and my doctor said, just Jamie, keep doing what you're doing. And it's working. So almost 50 this year, 2020 vision. Doing my workouts, looking after the dog and holding
complication free and living
complication free and running normal blood sugars.
And enjoying life and living life and not letting it kind of, to a certain extent, not letting it control your life.
It's always in the background, but I don't have a choice for that. So you just got to knuckle down sometimes and move on. But
well, it's been awesome, mate. And
it's good to be part of your journey
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
Like you talk about that roller coaster you're on with that high carb, and then you cycle across Australia.
Mate, I think you're just taking the words out of my mouth because we've got a really tight knit type 1 community, and particularly in WA, and particularly in that sort of low carb community. But you've been a really, really good friend, a really solid person, and we talk every day. Generally, not just about type 1, but about life and banter about the UFC and. But when I was out there cycling and that environment, there was a couple of conversations we had and.
I remember you saying, and I can't remember the words, but I'm sure you could bring them back to me, that you'd bitten off more than you went out there. What was the word you used? I can't remember what it was.
I think I definitely, there was probably definitely a point that I said, have I got this? Have I done the right thing?
I wish I could remember. It was the first or second day, and you went, I went out there with, because we'd done a couple of training rides. Well, I'd done part of your training rides, met you halfway or less. And you were like, oh man, I got this. If I've just done 200 Ks, I feel like I can do another 200 today. I said, but you've got to wake up and do that 20 days in a row. And the second or third day, you said something like, my expectations were like so far.
Far from reality.
I've got no idea what I got myself into. I'm committed to it. And there's a certain point where I think, where you sat on the edge of the road, once you got past that, I think, myself, I thought you had it down, but there was no guarantees, but you kept on. So.
You know what? It's much like type 1. You base your life around strategizing and thinking, not will I get to the next, because I never look at it that way in terms of type 1. Will I get to the next year of my life? Or you just want to know how. And that's life. You just want to know how. Like, how do I get to that next point? That was the ride. This clearly is well beyond what I thought it was going to be in reality. How do I get to the next point? And it's the same. I don't know if
the word was delusional, Jamie. I was delusional about how hard this was going to be. It wasn't delusional. I can't remember the word, but it was. I had no idea it was going to be this hard. But anyway, you did it, and
I did it, and thanks to the support that I had. I'm a really big part of it. That was a good friend, and thank you. Thanks for today.
No, that's great.
Hopefully everyone can take away a lot from this, and I really want to have a chat with you and just,
We need to work out how to keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, we've all got a different approach, but it's good to just talk about it and learn from each other. That's one of the biggest assets in my management is learning from you guys. So
awesome.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks, mate.
No worries. Cheers.
Coffee. Cheers, mate.
Cheers to good chat.
Yes.